Tonight we're diving into something chilling, 3 unsettling tales from the misty, evergreen depths of Washington state. These are stories of people left alone in their homes, where the ordinary turns strange and the familiar becomes haunting. Whether you're watching this late at night or curled up with a blanket, get ready for an eerie ride. These tales are fictional, perhaps inspired by whispers passed down through small towns. Grab your headphones, dim the lights, and let's begin. In a quiet suburb of Olympia, Washington, lived Saraha's single mother, who'd just moved into a modest craftsman house with her 6-year-old son, Ethan. It was their fresh start after a tough year. The house was old, with creaky floors and windows that rattled in the wind, but Sarah loved its charm. One night, after putting Ethan to bed, she sat alone in the living room, scrolling through her phone. The rain tapped against the glass, a steady rhythm. That's when she noticed Ita's shadow outside the window. Just beyond the glow of the porch light, it stood still, too tall to be a neighbour's cat, too human to be a trick of the rain. Sarah froze, her breath catching. She told herself it was nothing, maybe a tree branch swaying in the storm. But when she peeked again, the shadow shifted. It didn't move away, it leaned closer, as if pressing against the glass. She couldn't see a face, just a vague outline, broad and unmoving. Heart pounding, she grabbed a kitchen knife and checked every lock. The shadow stayed, night after night, always at the same window, always when Ethan was asleep. She started leaving the curtains closed, but she swore she could hear faint scratches like fingernails on the paneven through the fabric. One evening, she worked up the courage to call her brother Mark, who lived an hour away. He promised to come over the next day. That night, she stayed up, watching the window from the couch, waiting. Around 2 a.m., the scratching stopped. Silence pressed in, thick and heavy. Then a soft thud came from Ethan's room. Sarah bolted upstairs, knife in hand, her mind racing with images of that shadow somehow inside. She flung open the door. Ethan was safe, curled up in bed, snoring softly. But his window, which she'd locked herself, was wide open, rain pooling on the sill. Below it, in the mud outside, were footprints bare, human, and impossibly large. She called the police, but by the time they arrived, the prints were washed away by the storm. They found nothing, no signs of a break-in, no trace of anyone. Mark arrived the next morning, and Sarah told him everything, her voice shaking as she clutched a mug of coffee. He stayed a week, but the shadow never returned. Sarah and Ethan moved out soon after, leaving the house empty. Neighbours say they still see something out there some nights, a tall figure by the window, waiting. Sarah swears she'll never go back, but she can't shake the feeling that whatever it wasn't done watching her. Jake was a college student in Tacoma, renting a cheap duplex near campus. It wasn't much, just a cramped living room, a kitchenette, and a bedroom with peeling wallpaper, but it was his first place alone, and he was proud of it. The first few nights were fine, if lonely. He'd stay up late studying, the hum of the fridge his only company. Then one night, as he lay in bed, he heard Ita whisper. Soft, muffled, like someone talking through a wall. He sat up, straining to listen. It was coming from behind the headboard, too faint to make out words, but unmistakably human. Jake brushed it off. At first old pipes, he figured, or maybe the neighbours. but the whispers kept coming every night, always around midnight. Sometimes they sounded urgent, other times pleading, but never clear enough to understand. He started sleeping with earbuds in, blasting music to drown it out. One weekend, curiosity got the better of him. He tapped on the wall, no response. He pressed his ear against it and heard it again, closer now, like someone was right on the other side. "Hello?" he said, his voice trembling. The whispering stopped. For a moment, he thought he'd imagined it until a single word came through, clear as day. Jake. His name spoken in a voice he didn't recognize. Panic set in. Jake tore the room apart, looking for a vent, a crack, anything that could explain it. Nothing. He called his landlord, who laughed it off. Old houses make noises, kid. Desperate, he borrowed a hammer from a friend and smashed a hole in the wall. Dust clouded the air as he peered inside. No pipes, no wires, just insulation, and a small wooden box tucked between the studs. Inside was a faded photo of a woman, maybe 30, with tired eyes, and a note in shaky handwriting. "Don't listen. She'll find you." That night, the whispers turned to sobs loud, wrenching, echoing through the whole house. Jake didn't sleep. Jake moved out the next week, crashing on a friend's couch until he found a new place. He left the box where it was, too scared to touch it again. Months later, he got a call from his old landlord. A new tenant had moved in and complained about crying in the walls. Jake never told anyone about the photo, but he keeps it in his mind. That woman's face, staring out from the past, as if she's still waiting for someone to hear her. He wonders if she ever will. Emily was a writer, retreating to a cabin near Bellingham, Washington, to finish her novel. It was just her, the trees, and a view of the Puget Sound through the pines. She'd rented the place for its seclusion, no neighbours, no Wi-Fi, just the quiet she craved. The first night, she unpacked, lit a fire, and settled in with her laptop. Around midnight, as the wind howled outside, she saw it, a faint orange glow moving through the trees. A lantern, she thought, carried by someone out there in the dark. It bobbed slowly, then vanished. She chalked it up to a hiker, though the nearest trail was miles away. The glow returned the next night, closer this time, swaying just beyond the cabin's clearing. Emily watched from the window, her curiosity warring with unease. She grabbed her flashlight and stepped onto the porch, calling out, "Hello, anyone there?" The light stopped moving, then flickered out. She waited, the silence pressing in, until her flashlight caught something figure in the trees, too far to see clearly, holding a lantern that reignited with a soft, unnatural glow. Night after night, it came closer, always stopping when she spoke, always disappearing when she tried to follow. She started leaving notes on the porch. "Who are you? What do you want?" But they were untouched by morning. One stormy night, the glow was right at her doorstep. Emily's heart raced as she peered through the peephole. The figure stood there, cloaked in shadow, the lantern casting a warm light that didn't match the cold dread in her chest. She opened the door a crack, her voice shaking. "Please, just tell me who you are." The figure turned, and for a split second she saw a face pale, familiar, like her own reflection twisted by time. Then the wind surged, snuffing out the lantern, and the figure was gone. On the porch was a single damp page from her own notebook, one she'd written years ago about her grandmother, who died alone in a storm. Emily left the cabin the next day, her novel unfinished. She couldn't explain it, but she felt a strange peace mixed with sorrow like. Something had found her, something she'd lost long ago. The cabin's owner later told her others had seen the glow too, always on stormy nights, always silent. Emily keeps that page in a drawer now, a reminder of a night she'll never fully understand. She wonders if it was a warning or a goodbye.